You wouldn't build a house without a foundation, so why try to build a business without one? Grow your contracting business and grow your mind with Growth Mindset Monday.
Welcome back to Mindset Monday. I'm your host, Garrett Bake, founder of the American Contractor Network and the Build Pro community. I just want to show you this really cool shirt we had made. Wait, let me see. Oh, there we go. There we go. American Contractor. Don't worry. We're going to have some of these that we're going to be doing some giveaways on. But you guys know the drill. If you're here live, go ahead and drop your name, your business name, and where you're from so we can give you the good old shout out. It's crazy to think that we are halfway through June already. Most, if not all, the graduations that already happened. You know, kids are out for the summer and let chaos ensue, as they say. This last weekend, we were actually in California. I was visiting a client in Corona, and then my wife came along with me, and so we decided to hit Disneyland on Friday, which was we were a little what's the word, concerned, because it was grad night. They have grad night, I think, a few nights out of the year for graduating seniors, and they shut the park down for everybody else, and these kids just run around, you know, on their rides and get to have a good time without the adults around, as they say. But it was really interesting to me, right? And we're just going to jump right into it. It was really interesting to me. If you look at, you know, a company like a Disney, right? Or a company like a Starbucks, or a company like a McDonald's, or a company like Nike. You look at these companies, and the question I have is, how do they deal with their issues? How do they deal with their unhappy customers or clients? How do they deal with people that they just can't seem to satisfy? It's really interesting, right? Because I want you to think about it, right? We all have the PITA clients, I like to call them PITAs, right? Pain in the ass. We all have the PITA clients. And so the question is, how do we deal with them, right? What do we do to deal with these clients? While we get ready to rock here, we'll shout out a couple of folks. We got Michael Babbitt with Build More Fences out of Charlevoix, Michigan. Welcome to the show. We've got Kendrick Fairley, Kay's Landscaping and Handyman, Gulfport, Mississippi. Welcome to the show. I think we're actually going to be driving through Mississippi. We're taking a little road trip down to New Orleans and then back up to Virginia to go see our kids here in a couple of weeks at the Navy facilities up there. So that's going to be a fun one. Again, if you're joining us live, go ahead and drop your name and your business name into the comments, and we will go ahead and shout you out. Now, why do I bring up, you know, these large corporations, right? We love to hate them. I mean, think about it. You loved going to Chipotle until they decided that they weren't going to give you big portions anymore, right? Or you loved going to Target until they changed, you know, who it was they were focusing on. Or you love the thing, it never changes, right? We love to hate these big companies, but these big companies are the ones that keep making money hand over fist. So how is it that they keep making money while dealing with customer issues, right? And there's a few different ways that this can happen, right? The first way, and this is one that very few people or businesses will ever employ, is the Costco model. Now, what's the Costco model? You could have bought a Christmas tree 6 years ago. You can return your Christmas tree to Costco and they will give you your money back. Think about that for a minute, right? Now, do you think that they have a lot of unhappy customers? No, not really. I mean, you're going to pay a membership, cool, but they don't care. They don't care what you buy and what you don't buy. In fact, most of their money comes off your membership model. Thank you very much. Or your membership money, I should say. So if you look and think about Costco, right? Costco has the easiest policy to deploy. Now, it's not the easiest policy for a small contractor to deploy, not at all, right? Imagine if you're doing a $40,000 job, they're unhappy, you give them your money back. Whoa, hey, wait a minute. I already spent that money on supplies, on my employees, on my office or my truck, right? Like, I'm not going to give you that money back, right? So that might not be the best model. Then you think about a company like Disney, right? I make fun of my wife sometimes because she likes to watch this particular woman on social media. She's on TikTok and on Instagram. And what she does is she role plays, right? But she role plays real life examples of people complaining about things happening at Disney, right? Like they couldn't cut into the front of the line, or they didn't have the right food, or they didn't open the park on time, or they didn't have this particular thing, right? There's always people complaining. So I think more than anything, what you guys need to understand is you're never going to make everybody happy, right? Like just deal with it. You're never going to make everybody happy. Now, is that a good thing? I don't think so. Is it a bad thing? I don't think so. It's just the reality of things, right? I've had clients that I've worked with as far as, in the consulting space. I've had clients that we told them, hey, look, we have a 90-day money back guarantee. If you don't get results, now, of course, you have to follow the steps of the program, but if you don't get results, we'll give your money back. No questions asked, right? I've had people at the end of 90 days who did absolutely nothing. Didn't make phone calls, didn't go out and visit people, didn't follow up, didn't do all the things that we told them that they needed to do to grow their business. Didn't do it, right? Perfect game plan. And we know it works because it's worked with hundreds of other businesses. So we know it works and we deployed it and they haven't done anything. And then at the end of 90 days, they're like, I want my money back. And we're like, for what? Like you didn't do anything, right? And I got into, I won't say it an argument, a disagreement with a past client about this. And I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. This person threatening to leave a 1-star review and to blast me on social media and to insert blank, like it's just not worth it. Right. So I gave him his money back. Now it was a couple $1,000s. It wasn't anything crazy, but like at the end of the day, you have to determine what it is you're going to do with these unhappy or these angry customers that you have. We live in an unrealistic society nowadays. It's just that way. I have a good friend of mine who's a custom home builder. He built a home in Park City. In fact, he was probably a few months away from finishing. And this was like a 8,000 square foot home, beautiful finishes and fixtures. They were just getting done putting up all the finishes and fixtures in the home. And guess what happened? A fire. Caused by what? Well, they don't know. May have been a heater, may have been something else. They don't know. But it burned the entire house down, right? They'd been working on this home, just the home, not the planning stages, but just working on the home for 24 months, 2 whole years burnt to the ground, right? Now, was it anybody's in particular's fault? They can't determine. We were there with the fire inspector. They can't determine, right? So then insurance takes over, right? Well, if you've ever had to deal with insurance for any issue, like they're very hard to deal with, especially for something that's a multi-million-dollar project. Well, the homeowner at the beginning was, hey, no issues, no problems, we'll rebuild. Totally cool with it. Here we are 3 months later, and the homeowner's pissed. The homeowner's pissed because nothing's happening. Now, my buddy, who's the contractor, wants to make something happen, but the insurance company is the one holding it up, right? So this is where most of your issues will fall. It's not one person's fault, right? It lies somewhere in the middle. And so how do you deal with that? What do you deal with that? Like, how do you make sure that you don't have to struggle with these conversations? Okay. So let me lay this out for you, and I'll give you a couple tools. Again, if you're writing this down, I highly recommend. If you're not, you should. But don't worry, this is recorded. And if you want a copy, we can send it over to you. Right. But here's the deal. Okay. The first and most important thing, you're going to have angry customers. I already mentioned this a little before. You're going to have angry customers. You're going to have people who are pissed off. You're going to have people that are hard to work with. It's just the reality of it. But this is what I'll tell you. The better you can get at the beginning of filtering through these people, the easier your life will be. Now, what does that mean? I'll give you another example. Client of mine, they are a remodeling contractor, right? And so they end up finding a lead. The guy has a 6-plex that he wants to remodel and update and upgrade. And so for 4 months, they went back and forth with this guy. Design upgrades. They talked about, different things that they wanted to add and take away and whatnot. And they finally settled on a contract price of like $450,000, right? So they start doing the work. Day one, this guy calls. Why is your guy's truck parked in my driveway? Day one, right? Within the first week, there was one of the pieces of machinery leaked and leaked some oil onto the driveway. Now they were going to clean it up anyway, but he saw it and he called about that, right? Then he's calling and asking about the breaks that the guys are taking or what time they're showing up, right? And this is all building and building and building. And after a couple of weeks, I knew that this job was going to end pretty quickly for them. And sure enough, a couple of days later, he fired him. Now, did they do anything illegal? No. Wrong? No. Immoral? No. Nothing other than this guy was a PETA, right? And so it cost them in the end $450,000. Now, of course, they get to keep a percentage of the deposit, right? But in the end, that's what it cost them because they weren't able to keep this job. Now, is that their fault? No, it's not their fault. And you can't blame them for it, right? But you try and do as much as you can on the front end to mitigate these type of clients so that you don't have to deal with these types of scenarios. Now, is it going to happen? Sure, it's going to happen. There's a concrete contractor that I work with, right? He's doing a backyard. And in Utah, there's a lot of basements. Okay. So he's doing a backyard pour. And he's telling this lady she wants it poured up against the house. And he's telling her, hey, look, you have this window well, we're going to focus on, sloping this away from the house, all the proper things. Well, they come, they pour, it's setting, come back the next day, and she's unhappy with how it's set. She's unhappy with how it looks up against her house, and she wants him to redo it. Well, what do you do, right? What do you do in that situation? So number one, again, most importantly, you want to get rid of the PETA clients as quickly as possible. Number two, I know you didn't sign up for this, and I know you're going to complain about this, and I know you're probably going to push back. Don't care. Welcome to being a contractor. Ultimately, welcome to being a business owner. Your job is to solve other people's problems. That's it. Solve people's problems. Some of the ways you solve it is through concrete, drywall, framing, painting, roofing, whatever your trade is. Sometimes it's dealing with conflict or conflict resolution. So number one, and most important, I already talked about it, get rid of the PETA clients as quickly as possible. Number two, right, and equally as important, or maybe a little bit less important, but still very important, you need to get really good at conflict resolution. Why? Because you're going to be dealing with it. You're going to be dealing with homeowners or project managers or GCs or subs or employees, right? You're going to be dealing with conflict. So if you are, then you got to learn how to deal with it. I'm going to give a couple of shout outs here. We've got Lennon Diaz, drywall finisher out of New Jersey. Welcome to the show. We got Edward Schwartz, ES Handy Services, Zolfo Springs, Florida. How do we deal with conflict then? Okay. So number one, and this is the most important and probably the hardest thing for you to do, stay calm, right? They escalate, you escalate, they escalate, you escalate. Next thing you know, you got a hammer and you're destroying all the work you did because they don't want to pay you. Bad situation to be in, right? So de-escalate as much as possible. Stay calm. Usually the calm person always wins. Now, last week we talked a little bit about some techniques to help you with that. The first one, again, is box breathing. You inhale for four seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Do that for a minute or two, calm down, okay? So here's some practical tips, okay? This, by the way, you can use this in sales as well. It's all about listening and understanding what the real issue is, okay? So you have to do what's called active listening, okay? Ask them what the issue or the problem is, let them vent, and then repeat it back to them. So, Mrs. Jones, you're saying that you're angry because this is taking longer than you thought it was going to take. Is that correct? Repeating it back to them, right? If you're right, she will say yes, and then maybe yell a little bit more. If you're wrong, she's going to tell you you're wrong and then ultimately get to what it is that the real issue is, okay? It's really hard to solve conflicts if you don't know what the conflict is about. People can be pissed about money. They can be pissed about the weather. They can be pissed about an employee. They can be pissed about delays and timing. They can be pissed about, money. Like there's so many things that they could be pissed about. Okay. Your job, number one, and most importantly, is figure out what they're pissed about. Okay. So let me ask you, right? Is the client always right or are you always right? Go ahead and drop it in the comments. What do you think is more accurate? You're right always, or the client is right always? What do you think? Because how you see this is going to determine how you respond to things. Okay. Now, I always believe that I'm right, but I also believe that I can make mistakes. What I like to do is find solutions to problems, though, right? Whatever the problem is, let's find a solution. So if I'm talking to Mrs. Jones and she's pissed because the concrete wasn't poured where she wanted the concrete poured. Okay. So Mrs. Jones, right? Active listening. I'm listening to her. She's talking, she's venting, and I'm getting to the point where I'm discovering what the true issue is. So Mrs. Jones, you're telling me that I just want to understand this, right? You're telling me that you're unhappy with where the concrete was poured. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, cool. Mrs. Jones, what do you think we can do to resolve this problem? Ask them, right? They're going to say maybe something irrational. Maybe it's rational. Who knows? But they're going to say something. Give me my money back. Tear this out and pour it again and da-da-da-da-da. Any of a number of things, right? But ultimately, you're trying to find a solution for the problem, right? Now, for you, instead of saying, hell no, or we're not going to do that, or too bad, so sad, now we need to find that middle ground, right? So maybe she wants it repoured because it wasn't poured exactly where she wanted it poured. Well, Mrs. Jones, I hear you. I understand you. But you need to understand our perspective, right? Prior to us pouring this, we walked it with you. We showed you the frame. We showed you where it was going to be. And we talked about this was going to be where once it's poured, it's poured. And you agreed that this is where you wanted it poured. Do you remember that conversation? Yeah, but I don't want to hear it anymore. Completely understand that. But what would you do if you were in our shoes? Right? And now you're pushing it back to her. Ultimately, you're going to get to a point where one of two things is going to happen. You're going to resolve the conflict through some sort of, hey, look, we can repour this section, but it's going to cost you, but we'll charge you a discounted rate. Or you're going to come to an impasse. Right? Now, for sake of conversation, this is a conflict resolution conversation, if you will. So we're not going to go into if you have a contract, pre-liens, stuff like that. Okay. We're just going to focus on the conflict resolution side of things. So your job is to find a solution to the problem, right? What I tell my employees is to do this. Okay. We call it the 1-3-1 rule. Identify the one problem, come up with 3 potential solutions for that problem, and then determine which one is the best one, right? Edward was great here. He says, find solutions that work for both. 100%. Call it a mutually beneficial outcome, right? So 1-3-1. So we identified the problem. It wasn't poured where they wanted it poured. What are 3 potential solutions? Well, number 1 is you tear out that section and you repour it, right? Number 2 is you leave it, right? And number 3 is, I don't know, come up with a third. You repour the whole thing, right? So you have 3 potential options. Now, which one's the best one, right? But which one's the best one for both of you? And you're going to go back and forth a little bit, right? And you don't have to be mean about it, but this is part of it. Okay. You have to hold your ground. Okay. Mrs. Jones, we're willing to do this, but we're not willing to do that. Right. And eventually you should come to a resolution. Most people are reasonable people. Most people. Sometimes people are there to rip you off. Sometimes people just are never satisfied. Right. But for the most part, people are level-headed and they want to find solutions that work for both, right? Now, if you're smart about things, you're writing out contracts and you're making sure that, let's just say concrete pour, for example, you're taking pictures, you're documenting where it's all at. You've got signatures of like, hey, they agreed to this is where they wanted it poured, that kind of stuff. So you have something to fall back on, right? So make sure that you're doing what you need to do to address those issues. Now, what are some other things that you could do? Well, let's talk about this. Okay. Let me give you an example. So Mrs. Jones, right? She says something to the effect of, hey, this work isn't what I expected, and I'm really disappointed. Some of you have heard that one before, right? Well, what can you say? You could say something along the lines of, hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm sorry to hear you're disappointed, and I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. Can you share some specific details about what's not meeting your expectations so we can address it? Right? So you're validating their feelings, you're seeking clarity, and now, again, you're pivoting to a solution, right? Here's another one, right? You're remodeling a bathroom and it's taking longer than, You thought I was going to take because you're waiting for, whatever issues. Okay. Client says, you promised this would be done by now. This is unacceptable, right? I need this bathroom. Your response could be, hey, I understand how frustrating this delay might be. I'm sorry for the inconvenience that this delay caused, right? Supply issues, manpower issues, whatever the issue was. Here's our plan to get back on track. I'm going to have 2 guys here tomorrow, and then 3 guys here on Thursday, and we should be able to wrap it up by then. Can I update you on progress by Thursday? Right? Again, I'll make sure we keep you in the loop. Is there anything else I can do to support you and help you right now? Okay. You're acknowledging the issue, you're explaining it without excuses, and you're committing to action, right? You know the whole story about excuses, right? Most people have them and most of them stink, right? They're like a-holes, as they say. So don't make excuses. Like, it is what it is. The thing that most people want is just acknowledge, if it was your fault, then acknowledge it was your fault, right? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, this works really well in your relationship as well. Okay. Just acknowledge, hey, it was my fault. My bad. You're right. I should have communicated better. You're right. I should have done this better. You're right. We should have done that. Right. Just acknowledge it, but then move directly to the solution. How about we do this? You're trying to find a solution for a problem. Okay. Everything that you do as a business owner, whether it's an employee issue or a supply issue or a customer issue, it's going to involve some type of conflict resolution at some point, right? You have to get good at this. Because even when you're right, you're still going to have issues, right? I'll leave you with this as well. The better job you can do of documenting, the more you have in your favor. If you can't resolve it there, which happens sometimes, then what are you going to do about it, right? Well, if they're refusing to pay you and you've done the work as prescribed by a contract that you have signed and you file a lien or a pre-lien, depending on what your state requires, cool. Like you attempted to resolve this issue. Now move on to the next step. There's a client that I work with, and her and her husband have an HVAC company. Well, they went around with a particular company and fixed the HVAC in 3 or 4 of their stores. They didn't want to pay. Didn't respond to email, text messages, phone calls, didn't respond to everything. So they finally got a demand letter, right? They actually were smart about it. They got the cops and they showed up and they served them. And oddly enough, they got paid. Go figure, right? Like, there's nothing pretty about it. Sometimes conflict resolution works at a very personal level. Mrs. Jones, welcome to you to solve this. Sometimes you have to get the authorities involved. Sometimes you have to walk away, right? There's no perfect outcome every single time. But the better job you can do at the beginning of vetting your potential clients or customers or partners that you're working with, right? The higher likelihood you will not have to deal with some of these issues and problems that you're dealing with right now. As I mentioned already, final thing, document. Videos, emails, contracts, liens, conversations, everything. Document. I love my wife to pieces. Every time we rent a car, she videos the outside of the car. Why? Because if it ever comes back, we got proof. Now she's got me doing it. Go figure. All right. So listen, this week, focus on, if you've got an issue or a problem inside of one of your jobs, focus on what you're going to do to resolve that issue, right? Find solutions to problems quicker. The quicker you can do it, the quicker things will move along. The quicker things move along, the quicker you'll get paid. That's your job. Got it? Good. All right. That's all we got for you guys today. If you have any specific issues or questions with a client or a customer, feel free to reach out. We'd love to give you some answers. You can reach me at Garrett, that's Gerritt at AmericanContractorNetwork.com. Shoot me a message. I'd love to answer it for you. If you're looking for solutions to more than just conflict resolution inside of your business, you can join our free Build Pro community. We'll be going live here in a couple weeks. We'll have our entire training library, access to experts, and contractors just like you who are focused on growing their business using tools just like Contractor Plus. All right. You guys know what time it is, though. It's time for you guys to get after it. 3, 2, 1. Off you go.